Hey guys, it's Matt. I was emailing Patrick, and a advertisement popped up from Amazon for $59.99, I believe it was. It's for a game called Spiked Ball. It said, "Spiked Ball, have fun, get active." You can purchase the game. Right up, I guess it popped up on my Yahoo off to the right as I'm emailing. Have fun, get active, Spiked Ball. This is a game from Amazon. The whole world, the whole reality is a game. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Thanks for going over to Free Voice and checking out. It was very interesting to cover the Sade video again, not because of some of the same things we already covered. We knew years ago that was a major submission for the 7-Eleven job application ritual, part of the ritual itself, but it was it's where it led me. Where it led me. This is kind of where I'm going right now with this channel. My fascination is not examining the same stuff we used to look at, but if I announce to reality, I'm going to look into this. What else can you show me? What else can you provide? This stuff starts to pop up. And with the case of Sade, you saw it from the video at freevoice.io. There was a group that covered the same song, Cherish the Day, 2001, same year as the event, and the group was called 911 Entertainment. And it must have come out before the event because they were all dressed as first responders. And if anybody's saying, "Well, Matt, where are you going with this?" I mean, yeah, it's just predictive programming. No, it's not. It's just not very real. I don't know the ins and outs of it. No, I can't explain it. But I don't know how it's generated. But Matt, when you do this research, you're just finding definitive things that already happened. You're finding what already happened. Of course, you just didn't know about it, and I don't think so. I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know how it does it. You could call it retrocausality, call it whatever. It doesn't really matter. We'll never understand the mechanism. Kristoff at Uncanny Deduction, I think has kind of come over to this side, or at least he's if he looks at the connections, all right. I don't think he's no longer looking at the connections to get something out of it or to predict something. It's more the way I look at the connections, a fascination of how what he calls the reality fractal connects one thing to the next, connects Exeter in the UK to Detroit, how the reality fractal, as he puts it, connects. I'll leave a link to his video. Connects Wuhan to Detroit, and not that there's anything to it other than stepping back far enough and seeing how how reality does business like this. Just a comic relief. I don't think this is part of the reality fractal, guys, but here's a headline somebody sent me a while ago. These sniffer dogs are learning to see. These sniffer dogs can learn to smell low blood sugar, oncoming seizures, and certain cancers. At the University of Pennsylvania, according to National Geographic, they're now learning to smell the C. Sniffing dogs. Well, the other stuff, is doable. I mean, an ancient diagnosis of diabetes was sugar in the urine, and ants and bugs were drawn to the urine. Some doctors in antiquity would even taste it. So yes, of course, dogs here would be able to detect low blood sugar, perhaps. I mean, the way, ants would be drawn to urine in the case of a diabetic in ancient diagnosis. But to smell C, come on. I mean, give me, no matter what you believe it to be, no. Come on now. Give me a break. So we're bombarded by these ridiculous headlines, which most of them border on complete reality breakdowns. Someone sent me the lyrics to Ella Fitzgerald, "It's Only a Paper Moon." Now, I had no idea this even existed, and the I should actually have the lyrics here talking about how uh, basically Ella Fitzgerald, one of 20 artists or so that covered this song. It's only a paper moon, and again, I'm going to show you eventually how one breadcrumb leads to another. It's just how it happens over and over again in a world that's not very real. So the lyrics are like something like this: it's a Barnum and Bailey world. Nothing about the world is real. It's a paper moon. Will you only? Everything will be okay if you will only believe in me. So I don't have the lyrics here. It's what I remember. It's something like, from whose perspective, is this song being written? You almost read it like whatever the god of the material world, or a Satan saying, if is it written from that perspective, everything will be okay if you only believe in me, and all the lyrics, everything's fake. So of course, what do as I dive into it, I stop before I dive into it, and I said, is this going to be some sort of trail of breadcrumbs? Well, of course it always is. No real world could pull this off. So I dive into it, and again, I you can predict what's going to happen before you even look at this stuff anymore. If you get a certain sense, not everything, Matt. If somebody hands you a banana and you look into it, you're going to think it's going to be tied into Kristoff's fractal reality. No, not only when you get a certain sense that something is sniffs of the matrix, or it's sniffs of matrix code. You'll know when this is going to happen. So of course, a song written in 1933, the reality has to produce. It's not secret societies coordinated everything in back rooms anymore. I'm going to keep beating on that, or at least this is of course it's my opinion, my philosophy on that, because there's just so much. I don't know, like 99% of the truth community is just running around analyzing everything, that this is all real. The only group, whether you're Mandela affected or not, at least the only group that doesn't, or at least will look at reality in a different way, is the Mandela effect community. When continents move, then things aren't very real. At least they're doing that in the Mandela effect community, no matter what you think about the Mandela effect. So it's a 1933 written song. Ella Fitzgerald sung it in the 40s. And you go to on the Wikipedia, and there's like, well, I do have that here. There's like 30 or 25 major artists that have covered it over the past 45 or 50 years. Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Sammy Davis Jr. So guys, what's happening here? Whenever, let's like row, row, row your boat. We were to say how many different movies and works of literature or media has row, row, row your boat come up in through, because of the truth that's delivered through it. Life is but a dream. And this song, again, I apologize, I don't have the lyrics, but it's like, it's a fake world. It's called "It's Only a Paper Moon." It's Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey world. And it's just, well, it's not that good. It's not good enough. Just like it's not good enough to be covered this many times. Just like Row, Row, Row Your Boat, my favorite example of all time, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. The first time somebody would have come up with that, in any setting, I love to do this, if you just to think it through, to back up far enough to think how it would have gone down, whether somebody would have come up with that at a bar. Hey, I got a great song I just came up with. You might want to, I know it's not for adults, but it's for kids. Give this to your kid. What is it, man? Yeah. Row, row, row your boat. They would have taken him out back and beaten his ass. Don't sing that in here again. You're not going to be invited back into the bar. Or say it was one young school teacher that teaches kindergarten back in the day, 1800 and some, teaches a schoolhouse, young kids, said, okay, we came up with this great song and the class really enjoys it. If she told the other schoolhouse teacher on Little House on the Prairie, they would have been like, yeah, it's cool, well, maybe I'll use it, and then they would have flushed it. They would have never used it. It's propagated artificially and unnaturally. So the same thing, to a much lesser degree, is happening here for It's Only a Paper Moon. And reality has to deliver it through Chet Baker, Art Blakely, Dion and the Belmonts, Nat King Cole, Natalie Cole. Oh, she has to do it too. Her father's work. Sammy Davis Jr., Perry Como, Bing Crosby, Miles Davis. It goes on and on and on because the work itself kind of sucks. But in ways we don't understand, the reality itself has to perpetuate the message, and it's only a paper moon. And just search it on YouTube, the Only Paper Moon, Ella Fitzgerald, or whoever. It'll come up in all the different versions. At least as it's listed here, there's a ton of versions. So, the person that, how does that happen when you back up far enough? The person that had Perry Como sing it, or is there anybody? Paul McCartney, or Mike? It's Billy sang it. How does that work? Does the person handler approaches one of these famous people and said, on behalf of the Illuminati Control Center, Chernobyl branch, we need you to, this has to be pushed through reality and people need to be reminded of the themes contained in It's Only a Paper Moon. No, they're not in on it. It just, it works. The more, my theory is the closer you are to minion level, the more reality will simply work through you without you being even aware. And if anybody's saying, well, maybe you isn't even you or a real person, if reality can do its biddings, the not milk can do its biddings through people without people being aware. That's how it works. That's why I say nobody's in on it. Nobody's plotting and planning all this stuff. Maybe they get an idea. Where did that idea come from? Are they real spiritual, soulful beings? Are they organic portals or NPCs? If they're more, or have they got themselves closer to the organic portal NPC on the sliding scale? If that's the case, they're going to be more open to suggestion. I'm just thinking potential truth drop. Probably not, but it just popped into my mind and I'm doing this kind of on the fly. It's Ricardo Montalban in Khan, The Wrath of Khan. And what is he puts those things in the ear of Chekhov and of the other starship captain, guy that they introduced in that movie who's not from the original Star Trek series. And I think he says to them, they go in the ear, remember, and they're like bleeding out the ear and it's screeching and they're like falling down in pain. He says it makes one susceptible to suggestion, so these creatures in the ears, I don't know, Matt, I don't, not the greatest truth drop. Does that relate in any way to how if somebody, as I've said, giving pieces of themselves up and becoming more like an NPC, or doing a reverse Pinocchio where they started out as a real boy or real girl, and they've evolved into, they've evolved back into Pinocchio, a piece of wood that the reality system and screen and Notnell can then use to do its bidding without anybody, being in on it. How else do you come up with a list of 30 or more artists? That doesn't say no. I thought it said Led Zeppelin. It says Lena Zavaroni. I don't know why I would even see that as Led Zeppelin, but I'm not wearing my glasses. But yeah, so that's how it works. And these people aren't in on it. Their managers aren't in on it. It just works through them. And I don't have better words for it. The reality itself needed to propagate. It's Only a Paper Moon. And, I'm seeing, many of you are seeing that this is how it works. Kristoff of Uncanny Deduction is seeing it. But in terms of the truth community seeing it, they're not, Well, Matt, you're presenting that like you're sure and you have it all figured. I know these I don't have it all figured out. I mean, these concepts are so big, but I just, I beg of these truth channels, maybe I was going to say, haven't we seen enough? Haven't we seen enough of endless things connecting, and what Kristoff calls the reality fractal, connecting to this and connecting to that, and looking into something leads to something else, which happened, just happened to me a few days ago for Sade, Cherish the Day, and which led to ultimately the Jay-Z album called Blueprint, released on the day itself, 2001. September on 2001, Jay-Z released Blueprint. So, other than the fact as to how all the breadcrumbs and everything connect in an unnatural fashion, I say to myself, well, doing this, you know, every day for 10 years almost, how come I wasn't aware that Jay-Z had a album called Blueprint released on the day itself? Or how come I wasn't aware of a band called 9/11 Entertainment that put a album out where they're dressed in firefighters uniforms, first responders, put it out on 2001 where they're covering Cherish the Day, the song I chased down related to the 7/11 job application ritual. So, and somebody's yelling at this presentation going, well, Matt, you're going to be, you're aware of everything. You're going to be, just because it potentially is a retrocausality, Matt, just because you missed it. No, of course not. I'm not going to go there, but I'm just saying it's just odd. What's the one? It was a Don Henley song or a Don Henley album that we came to find 4 or 5 years ago, completely related to, I don't remember what it's called. I'm not going to look it up at this time, but be completely related to the 7/11 event in terms of the way the album is titled or the song itself is titled. And a lot of us in this community, when we became aware of that 4 or 5 years ago, said, how do we miss this? Whatever the name of this Don Henley song is, or a solo album, not on the album with even there's it's a New York Minute is on the album. The age, I guess it's the end of the innocence. This is the end of the innocence. I think that's the album that has, and even New York Minute to me is like a little mini, not 7/11 job application truth drop. But there was another album, and it was so blatant in the way it's titled. We many of us in this community, including myself, went, how could we miss this? And that leads, of course, to a lot of different possibilities. Where did it even exist? Did it even exist? We're looking back on something like a retrocausality, and no, myself and these people that I may have talked to or corresponded with about this Don Henley album, we're not arrogant enough to think that just if we missed it, it must not have existed. That's what a lot of the Mandela Effect community does. That's very arrogant and very bizarre, in my opinion. People in the Mandela Effect community or that have Mandela Effect channels will be like, oh, this Brady Bunch special, I was a big Brady Bunch fan, and this Christmas special, it didn't exist, or I would have seen it. That's, come on. I mean, obviously we all miss a lot, and Mandela effects don't really work that way for the most part anyway. They're subtle. Existing realities is a subtle, slight shift or change. The way, if you saw the Free Voice video, there's that one scene where Sade disappears, and the Twin Towers just shift off a bit, almost like a new reality, yet so similar to the old. That's the way Mandela effects work. It's a subtle. It's not like a whole movie appears out of nowhere, and that's not the way. Am I an expert? Can anybody be an expert on the Mandela effect? No, but it's generally not the way it works. They're subtle. Usually the existing reality is inferior in some sense. What's remembered is remembered in the same way and is superior or better. Like, you're going to need, we're going to need a bigger boat from Jaws versus the reality now, and what exists is you're going to need a bigger boat. My favorite example, it's just so absurd. That's not an anchor effect for me, but it's an anchor effect for a lot of people, where they just know, that they said Roy Schneider came in and said, we are going to need a bigger boat. He, working with the guy from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, whatever his name is, and the old sea captain. He's not going to single out the sea captain and say, you're going to need a bigger boat. The old sea captain doesn't give one bit about what happens to the beaches, opening up the beaches, or Amity Island. He doesn't give a crap. He's just renting his boat out to these Roy Schneider and the other guy from Close Encounters trying to get the shark. He doesn't give a crap about what happens to the town or the tourist revenue. He's like, And he's had the boat for like 30 years. I mean, I'm going to need a bigger boat. I don't know. This is the boat I have. So just to get off this topic, but one of the key points is, or the key thing that I always go back to is, I mean, Steven Spielberg, at the time, he would have corrected that. He had the authority, of course. He would have corrected that line on the fly. You don't think Steven Spielberg, even was a little younger, had, his creepy connections? He didn't have the authority? Of course he did. He said, well, this makes no sense. I don't care what the writers wrote. This is my movie, it's going to become, we're going to need a bigger boat. Don't say you anymore. Take two. That's what would have happened. Would have been corrected on the fly. Even the actor themselves reading their lines would have come forth. It's a 100% Mandela effect, even though it's not an anchor effect for me. I have 5 anchors of my own. I've already talked about the Mandela effect enough to trigger about 20% of the people that watch this video. So I'll move off the topic. But guys, I guess I'm at the point where somebody sent me something. I don't want to, I don't want to make enemies. I don't want to pick on any channel. I'm not going to give any specifics about what I saw, but I'll just try to deliver what I'm saying about this, what I really believe, how the reality works in a general sense, for this applied to this one specific example. Somebody sent me something, a channel I'd never heard of. I don't know, 20,000 subscribers or something. Seemed like a nice person, researching the John Levi type stuff of the architecture and the ancient structures. And somebody had found, I don't know what it was. I didn't watch the whole video, but somebody had found an article from a 1850 newspaper article from, I don't know what it was, the Cleveland Gazette. I'm just making that up. I have no idea. The article is talking about antiquities or ancient structures or ancient ruins or things like the Parthenon found all throughout the United States. And there it is, Matt, the smoking gun. And I think whatever. Where I saw this was on this smaller channel, and this was just brought to my attention. And when I see it, guys, I just want to let you know where I am in backing up far enough and analyzing the reality of the nature of this place from a distance. I don't believe there's any way in the world that for the first time ever, somebody found a smoking gun. Oh, what a coincidence. Somebody found a smoking gun, a newspaper article. I don't know how it happened. Now, there's 2 possibilities. One, it's completely fake. This truth community puts too much stock, way too much stock, on video. I was talking with Greg earlier today, and we both immediately agreed there's nothing at this point that can be relied on that can't be faked. People send me stuff all the time. Matt, look at this video, or this video from the 7-Eleven job application shows no blanks, or shows, and if it's not a video that I remember analyzing over 10 years ago, I don't care to see it. If it's a picture I don't remember from at least my initial few years, I don't care to see it. Anything can be faked. And it's beyond that. I think the reality itself can generate the support for whatever it wants. So do I think that, hallelujah, there's an article from an old paper that's a smoking gun, that all these structures existed? Or do I think it's more likely that it's either faked, which, because they can fake anything. If somebody pulls out the original newspaper that their grandmother saved, I'll consider that. Something coming through the internet, no, they would have no ability to fake, something like the look of an old newspaper. That's just beyond their capabilities. Or this is crazy, even for a lot of people in this community. Not actually for all that we've seen. Many people will be like, no, Matt, that's not too crazy for us anymore. The reality itself generated it. Let me repeat that. Well, how did that work, Matt? I don't know how it works. The reality itself generated it. If you're Mandela affected, this isn't a stretch, but how many years do we need to see the impossible connections? Kristoff's reality fractals all connecting. Sade led to this, led to that, led to this. Oh, what a coincidence. Is it a coincidence? No. At some point, when you've seen it 4,000 times, you go, that's what it does. It's Geico. That's what it does. That's what the reality does. Looking into, it's only a paper moon. Oh, that led to this. 1933. It led to that. Oh, I didn't tell you one other thing it led to. It led to the movie with, I think, Tatum O'Neal and Ryan O'Neal, It's Only a Paper Moon, with the cover of the movie, or the whatever the cover would be on the, or the movie poster, or whatever's on the box of the VHS, if you can get it in VHS. That being very similar to the the DreamWorks logo, the fishing boy, the fisherman at the end of the half crescent moon, not a half moon, at the end of a crescent moon, fishing. Hollywood drawing with the fisherman, drawing the audience in to a reality that it wants to propagate, drawing them, hooking them, hook, line, and sinker, pulling them forth, getting them away from themselves. Have I analyzed what potentially the exact relationship is between the movie with Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal, I guess his daughter, It's Only a Paper Moon, and the logo of DreamWorks? No, but I'm just saying one thing led to another. What a coincidence. And how many times do we need to see this? If you've done this for 5 or 7 or 10 years, you've seen this happen 1,000 times. So to go back to it again and be like, oh, I'm going to do research on this, and this will lead to this, and this, oh, isn't that incredible how the connections, and it's amazing how the Illuminati Control Center Chernobyl branch got this to work, and they connected with that, and how did they get everybody in on it? No, it's not real. I don't know how it works. Just not real. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And if anybody's yelling at this saying, well, you did that screen exercise with the Sade video on Free Voice, it's just to show people. I mentioned that video. I wouldn't even have made the video if it was just about analyzing what's an obvious 7-Eleven job application ritual. It was about showing how the impossible connections started up. More rabbit holes, more breadcrumbs, yellow breadcrumbs to chase after. It's unnatural. No real world could pull this off. And why does the truth community look at everything like it's so real? Even like mud flood. Well, if it's no different to me than, I've said this 1,000 times, but this is my philosophy, and I'm going to keep harping on it because I just don't see a change at all in the truth community. Oh, Matt, you have it all right, and everybody else is wrong. I believe I've seen enough of these impossible coincidences that I've made I have a certain understanding, I believe, of how things work. And every time I look at it, it turns out to be not very real because the coincidences and the synchronicities are impossible. So, yeah, I will keep harping on it as long as truthers are going to keep analyzing everything like it's real. Mud flood is no different to me than a dash and a Kit Kat. No different. Just because one involves what you call hundreds of billions of pounds of mud or dirt, if you believe the world is illusory, then there is no difference. There's no difference. That's where I am. If that's the weirdest thing in the world to you, then this channel's not for you. Go everybody that finds a new video or finds a new article or an old newspaper clipping, believe it's completely real, believe there's no way the reality could generate it, believe there's no way it could be faked, and you just go search it. It will give you enough to search, it will give you enough breadcrumbs where you'll be able to easily spend the rest of your life wasted looking at it. I'm going to keep looking at it to a degree, what people call screen exercise, because again, I'm here to help people get what I'm trying to do, get people to advance to a certain level. Okay. Very quickly, you may get to a level where it's like, I don't, you're beyond this. But looking at the truth community, where it looks like 95% of everybody's analyzing everything as if it's completely real, as if there's no, artificial nature to the reality itself to be able to pull all this craziness off. And what's really funny about it is most of these same people presenting the truth community, they'll talk about dark occult, magic, demons, all this stuff occult and magic, where will that any entities that could use those types of means and mechanisms will, that's like a strange influence on reality in ways that bypass the physical and things we don't understand. They'll admit that's all real, but then I'll say, potentially the reality itself is generating an old newspaper article, but then that's just, well, Matt's, that's crazy, Matt. I don't know. Most people listening to this are absolutely open-minded to my take on this, because it's not like I'm pushing my take on you. You've seen it you've been looking at these things for 3, 5, 7, 10 years, many of you, but people like Greg, way longer than that. Greg on the 7-Eleven job application, when he submitted it in 2001, the day of, he's talking to his coworker. He said, there's this, with what's on the news, that's just impossible. That can't happen. I mean, just an hour later, I've admitted many times, of the Matrix, I believed in every bit of what they presented the event to be through probably 2007 or so. Believed every bit of it. So there are people like Greg that just have been doing this a whole lot longer. And for those people, and Greg doesn't look at the conspiracy stuff. He just basically can't take it anymore. He does other things. When I want to call him and consult with him, he'll talk to me. But he's like, I don't need to see anymore. There's no way all this connection, synchronicity, what Kristoff calls the reality fractal, can connect over and over and pull different things in and just keep leading you down another path time after time. It's a joke. The 95% of the truth community should be, at this point, they at least saying, whether they're Mandela affected or not, saying this isn't very real. At least everything outside of your immediate reality bubble, you can still hold on to the fact that where you are in this reality bubble, because you're helping to create it, your cat jumps on your lap, or your wife comes into the room, is very real. But everything outside of that is pretty much a screen, and it's become, it's breaking down even more than it has in the past, and it was a joke in the past, but now it's a complete joke. It's breaking down, and we've talked about why it's breaking down, and what ultimately what we're learning about ourselves is it's breaking down. But anyway, I certainly better wrap this up before I get to 33 minutes. Boy, let the comments start on that if I were to get to that. Thanks, guys. See you soon.